Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The British heavyweight Daniel Dubois is flying high in the WBO rankings. He's up 3 places this month in the latest update to number 3. He had been at number 6 in December 2019, but this is a career high ranking in any sanctioning body for the Brit, who's 22 years old and coming off a win over Kyotaro Fujimoto in December 2019. He had 5 fights in 2019, which has helped propel him up these WBO rankings. So I'll just start at the top there and get to Daniel Dubois, because there is a feeling of inevitability. Dubois is going to climb to the mandatory spot at some point, but we'll talk about it. At number 1, the current mandatory challenger, Alexander Usyk. Seemingly could be next for Anthony Joshua, could be the fight after. It's hard to say. It's sort of a bit all over the map at the moment, some of the reporting, some of the statements, bit of misdirection perhaps from different sides, but he is going to get a title shot. He's guaranteed it. And if there is a vacated title, Joseph Parker, who's at number 2 in the rankings, probably is Johnny on the spot. There had been some talk about a potential Usyk and Derek Chisora fight, but talk of that has really dampened down in the past couple of weeks, and it's seemingly maybe the WBO wouldn't sign off on a Chisora fight, because that probably made more money for Matchroom in the United Kingdom as a pay-per-view. But Joseph Parker appears to be the guy who will get the Usyk fight if Joshua is forced to drop a belt. But at number 3, Daniel Dubois, so up 3 places as I mentioned from number 6, career high ranking, probably in line for the WBO mandatory spot in 2021 at some point. As I mentioned, just feels like that's just going to happen. There's an air of inevitability. And with him being a big puncher, a guy who is developing and looking sharp, one of the blue chip prospects who's sort of making the right moves, the right steps on the way up, 2020 needs to be a bit tougher competition, needs that seasoning before a title sort of run, probably in 2021 or 2022 at the latest. Just feels like he's on track for that, and let's be realistic, Frank Warren is probably going to have to navigate him into a mandatory spot, because at the moment he's seemingly low reward for high risk. He's knocking out all sorts of guys, and a number of guys in the sort of not the WBO top 15, but the sort of what fans would regard as their top 10 or top 20. He's probably beating half of them right now anyway at this sort of stage in his development. But another year or 2 of seasoning, he's going to be a real problem. He's developing a very stiff jab. It's a good weapon where he works off with the right hand. Good body puncher, and really, guys, stay hit when he connects. So Dubois, he is going to, Frank Warren with his connections to the WBO, the relationship over the years, he will maneuver him into the mandatory position at some point. And who knows, maybe there will actually have to be some sort of final eliminator that he'll have to go through. But at the time that he has it, say if it was against Joseph Parker, if Parker doesn't end up fighting Usyk, if that's in 2021, it's a great fight, but also Dubois is probably at that point ready for that sort of fight. And I remember Frank Warren back in 2017 when Joseph Parker had the WBO title, he actually said back then Dubois could beat Parker then. So with a few more years development, I'm sure he would be completely bullish in terms of his prediction should that fight ever come off as an eliminator. But perhaps one of these other guys below Dubois could end up being an eliminator for him at some point. We'll see. But at number 4 is Adam Kovnatsky. He is actually down 1 place in this month's rankings, but it's kind of much of a muchness. He's got a ranking across all 4 sanctioning bodies at the moment, relatively high. His lowest is in the WBC at number 6, then this one here in the WBO at number 4, 2 rankings at number 3 in the IBF and WBA respectively. So at some point, if he keeps winning, he's going to become a mandatory in one of these other sanctioning bodies too. And the PBC has positioned him well to snaffle, and be a guy ready to be in a final eliminator or just be elevated to a mandatory spot at some point. Fighting Robert Helenius in March, a fight that he should win and win well. But, it's heavyweight boxing. You can never say never. Helenius can crack, although he's been sort of a lot of potential that's quite never been realized in the heavyweight division. There were big rap perhaps on Hellenius early on, never quite delivered, and he's on the back end of his career, hence why Adam Kovnarski is considered the favourite to win that one. Number 5, Andy Ruiz Jr. down one spot. He's back in the gym from his social media postings, although a lot of the photos that he's been posting saying back in the gym and, motivational quotes and other bits and pieces, they're not recent photos. A lot of them are quite old, so it's hard to know, what sort of level of effort and work he's putting in. Although I did see, and this is from his Instagram, he was running on the treadmill. This was just a week or so ago. Through 5 to about 10, not a lot of change. So Andy Ruiz Jr., as I mentioned, at 5. You have Junior Farr at 6, Michael Hunter at 7, Yevgeny Romanov at 8, Derek Chisora at 9, Zhili Zhang at 10. No change in terms of the ranking, all stay the same this month. Interestingly though, Junior Farr and Zhili Zhang, they've swapped their minor titles. So the previous month, Junior Farr was the full Oriental belt holder and Zhang was the interim belt holder, but that's changed around this month. So maybe that was a typo last month. It's hard to say, but Zhili Zhang did recently fight. That was in Monaco, beating Andrei Rudenko. Junior Farr, for his number 6 slot there, you'd probably say, based on some of the opposition that he's faced, his ranking is relatively inflated compared to the quality of opposition. So 2020 needs to be a big year for him. Michael Hunter's looking for that Alexander Povetkin rematch. Very good fight the first time. I would sort of hazard a guess if they fought again, Hunter being the younger, fresher guy, and Povetkin probably being another 6 or so months older. Hunter, I would favour him to beat Povetkin the second time around. Although, probably another fun fight regardless. At number 8, as I mentioned, Yevgeny Romanov, the WBO global belt holder, primed for a big year potentially. He's been climbing up the rankings here throughout 2019. He's been facing good level journeymen and gatekeepers, but it's time for him to up the opposition. And given he turned pro late at 32 and he's a couple of years older now, and a guy who beat Deontay Wilder in the amateurs, so that's many moons ago now, he needs to sort of have a big year if he wants to propel himself to the big fights and to a heavyweight title shot. At number 9, Derek Chisora has got the Intercontinental title, but for whatever reason he's not ranked higher. A guy generally with that regional strap, the Intercontinental, would be ranked higher, generally sort of top 5-ish, somewhere thereabouts. Tom Schwartz, when he had that title, got as high as number 2, and he was facing, next to nobodies. And number 10, you've got Zhili Zhang with the Oriental title. Number 11, Frank Sanchez-Foray. He's got the NABO title. He will be fighting Joey DeWeco in a step-up fight in March on that Adam Kovnarski undercard. So that's a good test for him. See if he can get through there. And obviously, if he does, there could be some decent fights in the offing. Number 12, this is an interesting inclusion, Joe Joyce. So this might be the Frank Warren influence in the WBO. Joyce obviously hasn't been fighting of late, but suddenly propelled into the top 15. And maybe that is because they're looking to line up Dubois and Joyce for April. Still, I think that matchup happens later in the year as opposed to in April, but I'm happy to be proved wrong on that, because if the sooner the better. I think both guys are looking for that sort of fight to take them to the next step, the next level. Number 13, Tom Schwartz. He is down one place, and interestingly, he's been ranked in the WBO top 15 continuously for well over 3 years now. So he has been a permanent fixture for some time. Number 14, you have Dempsey McKean, recently announced a fight with Johnny Rice. That will be on March the 7th in Australia. And at number 15, you have Filip Hrgović. So he is down one spot, and he occupies the previous spot of Kyotaru Fujimoto, the Japanese heavyweight who's been banished from the rankings after he was dispatched by Daniel Dubois so conclusively in December 2019. But in terms of Hrgović, could be a big year for him. He's been talking about going to the Olympics. He's been calling out a number of big-name fighters, including Dillian White, who sort of scoffed at that suggestion. But like Daniel Dubois, Hrgović is one of these high-risk, low-reward sort of guys at this point in his career, just sort of ebbing past the sort of prospect phase into that fringe contender level status. He wants a big 2020. He wants a title shot. He feels he's ready for one right now, but he's probably, like a number of other guys, just going to have to hurry up and wait. But what do you make of this top 15? Daniel Dubois climbing to a career high 3 in the rankings. Drop a comment. Loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.